Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I am joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are we today?
I am doing well, Lake. How are you?
I am doing pretty good. Another cool and exciting episode. Also kind of a sad episode because this may be one of the last sailings that Disney does to one of these ports here for a while.
That is very true.
So definitely kind of a bummer when I feel like the DCL community is already clamoring for more options and we are taking some options away.
Yes, but that is not DCL's doing. The Destiny's port choices is DCL's doing, but this is not.
Yes.
Should we talk about where we're going?
Yeah, we are going to Norway and Iceland. And to talk about this sailing, we are bringing on board Andrea and Joseph. Welcome to the show.
I'm waving like you can see me. It is, in fact, audio only. Hi, I'm Andee, and I'm so happy to be back on the podcast.
Hey there, I'm Joe, and I'm so happy as well.
Andee and Joe were on when we did the theater, the evening entertainment options on Disney Cruise Line. And then they did, I believe, another trip report some other time. Yes, because I think the other trip report was first, and then the theater and Broadway was second. So welcome back, you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Well, welcome back. We have a lot to dive in here. This is a 12-night Norwegian fjords and Iceland sailing, and we've got some pre-days in London. So why don't we go ahead and just start with why did you book this sailing?
Joe, take it away.
All right. So actually, one of our previous conversations with you guys was discussing sailing with adults only, singles. And we have a bunch of friends. There are about 4 of us that usually get together and try to do a big trip. And we have been looking at a bunch of different sailings. We thought about Alaska. We thought about this sailing that we actually wound up choosing in the end, but prices were pretty high. And it just so happened that over the winter, DCL did some big discounts on this cruise in particular. So we came back around to this, and it wound up that the sailing was going to be just crazy, crazy cheap in comparison to when we first priced it out, probably at the end of last summer. We spoke with all 4 of our friends and we decided that this was it. And it just so happened that a coworker friend of mine was also going to be traveling on this cruise as well. So she and her 2 daughters joined us as well. So it was a great kind of experience for us to check out some new ports and to get on the Dream for an extended period of time. We do love getting on the ships for a long period of time. And this was the cruise that we chose.
Awesome. Well, what an amazing itinerary to dive in here. But before we even get on the ship, we did a couple pre-days in London. Why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of your booking process, both getting over to London and then how we picked what we were going to spend these couple of days doing. Once we wrap up that, talk about our process for getting to the port.
So I am a bit of a points queen. I love points. It's my newest hobby. And so because of that, I kind of helped everyone based on points currencies they had to sort of make a decision about how they were going to get over there. Like I had my friend open a card and then she was able to book everything direct from Los Angeles to London. I had some JetBlue points and I wanted to try Mint, so I was able to splurge out and do that. And then my cousin and Joe, we just sort of do our own thing once we get there. And then once we got there, I made us points reservations at a Hyatt, which has the best points redemptions, in case anyone was wondering about that. Book a Hyatt. The points reservations are based on a point chart, so they're more reasonable.
I need you to plan my journey into Europe next summer, please.
I'm happy to be your points consultant anytime you want, Christy.
Yes. Once we did get to London, though, actually all of us had been there previously. So this was going to be a little bit of just do things that we hadn't got to experience in the past. And as you know from previous podcasts, some of you, we do love theater. So one of our goals was trying to get in a lot of theater while we were in London. So we did.
Did you book your theater like the traditional way where you go to that theater to buy tickets, or did you try to buy discount tickets? Did you book them before you got to London?
I find booking theater in London is a lot easier in terms of like, you're not buying $800 tickets. So I just buy them from the theater's website in advance. And I don't search like londontheater.com. I search the names of the theaters. That might be a little niche. So for example, like I always want to know what the Donmar is doing. I want to know what the National Theater is doing. I want to know. And then I have a friend who lives there and he's always like, these are the things that I've loved. You should go see them. And then we find out things like when we looked for the May Chocolate Factory, they were doing The Baker's Wife. That is a flop show. It bombed here, but it has a song that Joe and I really love. So we were like, we gotta go. And we loved it. And then we found out Tom Holland was doing Romeo and Juliet. We jumped on that. That was like, we were up, the four of us were up at like 2:00 in the morning to be in a lottery. We ended up getting tickets. Spoiler alert, Jamie Lloyd should be arrested for crimes against William Shakespeare. Yeah, Tom Holland was spectacular. The show was abysmal. Yeah, it was heartbreaking. And then, I mean, some of them were niche and stupid, like Starlight Express is another bomb show, but we know it and we know it's stupid and we wanted to see it. So
what was the highlight show that you saw?
I liked Guys and Dolls. It was spectacular. Like if that transfers to Broadway, it should be on your list. Immersive. It's incredible. Like buy a standing ticket. You will be in the show. It was amazing. I think we also loved The Baker's Wife.
Outside of shows, did we do anything else in London that was kind of highlight or that you'd recommend?
Yeah, over the summer, you can actually tour inside Buckingham Palace. And I don't think you can do that necessarily throughout the entire year. So we all had the chance to do that, which was kind of awesome. We had seen it from the outside, most of us, but not everyone had actually done the actual tour throughout it. So that was a great thing to do over the summer in London.
And the Horizon 22 booking platform was free to book. And it was a gorgeous view. It was really pretty.
Yeah, we also did a lot of eating. In particular, we had afternoon tea at Fortnum and Mason, which is a classic, beautiful tea that also does gluten-free meals. So for any of you that have dietary needs, they do a vegan menu as well. And that was kind of great to experience while we were there too.
I recommended the Science Tea at the Ampersand Hotel by the Science Museum because they also do a gluten-free tea and you can dig for little dinosaur fossils from cookie crumbs.
Stop it.
You should do it, especially because you have a kid. Do that one. But Joe was like, no, I want to do the classic. And I was like, fine, next time.
All right. I'm taking notes.
Well, moving towards the cruise here sounds like a wonderful time in London and some awesome different niche things since you've been there before. It's not, the same couple things that we hear about pretty often, but Disney is currently sailing out of Southampton for this year. How did we get from London to Southampton?
Yeah, this was actually pretty neat because there were 4 in our room and then another 3. We had 7 people traveling together. So we found our own transportation and it was kind of just affordable to do it that way rather than going through Disney or going through a larger type of bus type situation. And we did that as opposed to any type of train system or things like that because this was allowing us to do a stop at Stonehenge, and none of us, actually, the 7 of us that were there, had ever been there. So we took a little detour to Stonehenge on the way down to the port of Southampton.
Yeah, how did that work timing wise? Like, what time did you end up getting to the ship? And do you feel like that jaunt was worth it?
Started pretty early in the morning. Our first pickup was, I think, 7:30 a.m. And it took a little while to get to Stonehenge, but once you're there, it's not that long of a stop because you pretty much get out, you take this little shuttle from where you park, and you get to Stonehenge and you pretty much do a lap. You see it, and then you get back on the shuttle and you're back in your car. So it may have deterred us like an hour and a half totally. We did wind up getting to the port before 1 o'clock or around 1, even though, some of us had maybe a port arrival time a little bit earlier than that. In the end, once we got to the port, there were some lines that we had to get into just because I think they were trying to figure out exactly what to do with us. It was the first time that they were sailing out of Southampton this season. So it was a little bit confusing once we got there.
That was weird. So it was like we had a port arrival time of 12:30. And then when we got there, they were like, oh, stand in this line. And I was like, this is the 1:30 line. Like, we should just be able to walk in right now. And they were not having it. No, they made us wait in the 1:30 line. I also forgot to put my bag tags on my bag. So we were digging through my bag until Joe finally was like, this is ridiculous. For some reason, I always forget my bag tag.
Well, I only get them half the time, so you're fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. Okay, so you felt like it was worth it, though, to see see the rock formations?
We had never seen Stonehenge before because I do not recommend. London is a city where you can see so much. I do not recommend taking time out of your busy London schedule to go that far out of the way to see a rock circle, an amazing rock circle. But there's so much history in the city of London. I just don't, unless you're spending 2 weeks there, I don't see it as a viable side trip. And I never had before. And I lived in London. Yeah, it was, to me, this was the best because you could just go. It was a half hour, 45-minute little jaunt. And then it didn't delay our time to the port hardly at all.
That's great.
How was the rest of the embarkation process?
Yeah, once we got through that first line, check-in was great. The staff there were really nice. And we were pretty much right on the ship.
What was it like getting back on the Dream for you? When was the last time you were on the Dream?
I was on the Dream February 21.
And I had been on the Dream last pre-COVID, maybe like 2019.
She's beautiful. It really is in gorgeous shape. That chandelier is spectacular. Like, she's going into dry dock. And there were a couple of things what people were joking about, missing screws. And I don't know what else were people joking about, Joe?
I definitely remember the screw that was falling off our door handle in the bathroom. Other than that, she looks gorgeous. And we had just been on the Fantasy too. So it was like we had just stepped off the Fantasy, stepped back on the Dream, and we were on the same ship.
What kind of cabin did you book for the four of you? And you stated that all four of you stayed in the same cabin, right? 4 adults.
Thing about this, we did stay in the family veranda. Okay. Which is the one with that Murphy bed that comes down. So it gives us a little bit of extra room in the room. We had done the Mediterranean 2 years ago and we were in an inside cabin. So thinking back, I don't know how we did that with 4 adults.
So you love your friends.
We clearly do. We really don't have any issues in the room. Historically, though, this is one thing that came up. On previous cruises, a lot of us did use the fitness center for showering and things such as that. I pretty much always would use that on past cruises. This time, because of some things that were happening in the fitness center and senses in general, we did not do that. So we were pretty much all in the room for every kind of like getting ready in the evenings, things such as that. And it really wasn't an issue with the 4 of us being in one room together.
Should we jump right into what happened at Senses?
Sure. So Senses, we pre-booked the length of cruise Rainforest Room Pass because to me, I wanted to be sailing through the fjords in a hot tub on a stone lounge. I mean, this was my fantasy from the moment that we booked this cruise. And all 4 of us pre-booked this. We got there and then we went to the bar raffle and they were pushing the pass and they were saying, oh, we're only selling 50 of these passes. And we were like, well, we already booked one. And they said, oh, well then because it seems like there's zero communication. You pre-booked that pass and it's like, they have no record of it. It's bizarre.
Their stickers, you would have thought that they would have had a list of the people that pre-booked, but they were like, do you have your receipt? And
we were like, what receipt?
You don't get a receipt when you pre-book certain things through the app. So that was really awkward.
And then we were also told that they were not selling day passes to the spa. But what we found out later was that they were not selling day passes on sea days, but they were selling an awful lot of day passes on port days. And some of our port days, we didn't get into port until noon. So we would get into and they were not even, you know how you usually do the bracelets at the Rainforest Room? No bracelets. They were giving cards and the robes had no pockets. So usually you could see if someone has Rainforest access because they're wearing a bracelet. But with cards, anyone could tap in, literally anyone. They were not monitoring it at all. So every time we went into that rainforest, every lounger was taken. The hot tubs that say 2 people maximum, one time I went in, there were 7 people in the little hot tub that, by the way, out of 12 days was broken maybe 8 of the days. it was not hot enough. They were constantly calling maintenance. The spa is broken. It's not hot. It's not hot. It's not hot. Like both spas. It was wild. To pay $279 and literally never have access to something, there would be a line of people waiting for the stone loungers. There were people complaining left and right. And they would be like, okay, thanks. And just we're like, okay. It's never been a census experience I've ever had. I've had a rainforest room pass every cruise I've ever been on. And this was by far and away the worst experience we've ever had. It was a shame.
Good to know, and hopefully something that can be fixed. But it seems like something that should have been, I mean, besides the spa being broken, the rest of it shouldn't have been an issue anyway. So that's unfortunate.
With this type of cruise, it's cold weather. So whereas a Caribbean cruise, everybody's on the top decks, this pace. So people are trying to find any indoor space. And this might have appealed to a lot of people, especially that there are a lot of repeat cruises on this because it's a 12-night sailing. It's different ports that aren't usually accessed. So who knows? And clearly Census took advantage of that and just said, here, come on in.
Well, let's move away from the spa a little bit, and we're going to stick to the dream here and kind of talk about our different venues. Why don't we move towards, let's do entertainment first and talk about kind of what some of your highlight entertainment was for this trip, and if you guys had anything additional book, drink tastings, or any of that, and what you thought of those.
The crew talent show.
Oh, on longer cruises, they do that.
It was incredible.
The crew talent show is the best. Do not miss it. If they are offering it on your cruise, go, go, go. The crew is amazing. Every performance was so good.
And the audience, and you had a lot of people from the kids club performing, and the kids were in the audience cheering the people on. It was so nice. It was such a great experience. That was definitely a highlight.
Did you go to the evening shows every night?
Well, some of us. I pretty much took in like all of the main stage shows. So they had Beauty and the Beast, which was excellent. That's the new one based off the new movie. They did Believe, which is on a lot of the ships. They had there was a new show.
And the award goes to, that's what it was called. I liked it. I thought it was fine.
Yeah. Oh, so not Golden Mickey's, an actual different show.
They actually had Golden Mickey's. And then this other show, and the award goes to, which was kind of more of their classy, let's everybody wear suits and nice dresses and just present songs that won awards over the years. And it was nice.
Yeah.
They actually played a niche. It's so dumb. Like a mashup from a stage show from the Magic Kingdom from like 20 years ago that was just around the river bend, Go the Distance, and Out There from Hunchback. It was amazing. It was amazing. It was worth it just to hear that arrangement of those three songs.
And then what about game shows or things like that? Did you guys participate in that type of entertainment?
We did. We went to see Match Your Mate. Who would miss it? Match Your Mate's my favorite thing. We did a ton of trivia. 2 Broadway trivias. We lost by a point to someone who had cruised for 84 cruises and wrote a book about Disney and theater. Every time we saw him walking in, we were like, no, he was like our unofficial nemesis. Like, this man has no idea that we were like, it's a little embarrassing, but what families say in private. Basically, we were like, no.
Yeah, because you guys are a lot of theater nerds. And
Did you guys do any drink tasting or any other additional entertainment?
Yeah, we did. We did 2 different tastings. We did the gin tasting.
World of Gin,
which was...
How was that?
I thought it was excellent. Andrea?
I liked it. And it was recent. It was like, it wasn't the price of World of Old Fashioned. That was like $100. My cousin did that one, which she liked it, but she was mad that they didn't have a certain type of cherry that you really can't get in Europe. She likes those really bougie cherries and they didn't have them, and she was so salty about it. But we did World of Gin. We liked it. It was more reasonably priced than the other one. I got ultra seasick on day 6 and spent the entire day and night in bed, so I missed mixology, but Joe said he really liked that one.
Yeah, it was great. I don't know, this is our first mixology back since they're allowing the people in the class to like make the drinks. I guess the last one we did was post-COVID and only the bartenders and the staff was making the drinks, but we were able to make our own drinks this time. It was great. It was like back to old school mixology, which we loved in the past.
Did everybody make a drink, or did they like pick one person to make?
There were maybe 4 or 5 drinks, and they basically let like 4 or 5 people make each drink. So in essence, like if you had a group of 4 or 5 people, everyone can make a drink, which was kind of great.
There was like 5 people making drinks all at the same time. Like, okay.
Yeah. So if there were like 25 people in the class, then 5 people made 5 drinks each 5 times. But yeah, it was great because a lot of people got to be involved. You know, it just makes it more exciting as you're going through the class.
Well, why don't we turn it towards dining? We have 12 nights of rotational dining, so we will not be able to hit every single meal, every single restaurant. But why don't you give us your highlight dining night, your highlight dish, and maybe you get some of the more specialty menus on longer cruises like this. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what one of those menus was like most surprising or you enjoyed the most?
I just would like to say that our head waiter this cruise, Raphael, was the best head waiter we've ever had on any Disney cruise. And one of the people in the other party was a platinum, and she said the exact same thing. This guy was the nicest. He came around to every table every single night. He was fetching things from other restaurants for Joe, but he was really spectacular. And our waiter, Vishal, was incredible. And we just really loved them.
And our assistant waiter, Randy, was adorable too.
Yes, they were all great. I love the crew. They're incredible. And my favorite, I don't know, we were forced to have the pirate night menu this time, which we usually try to schedule Paolo for. It was fine. I didn't really have a favorite. Vishal brought me Indian food a lot from the crew mess, which was really nice. After a while, like, I don't know, 12 nights gets, even if you're like, I need to have a lighter note offering, like sometimes you just need different flavors. And we liked that. Like when he brought me Indian food, I was like, I don't really like anything, Vishal. And he was like, don't worry, I'll bring you butter chicken. And it was delicious. So he was amazing.
Did you ever go to the quick service for dinner instead of eating in the main dining room?
No.
Not for dinner, but we with this cruise and in the past, we always get late dining. So we do go to the quick service for like an early dinner sometimes. First dinner, exactly. We did that a few times. For me, every sailing, it's a little bit different with the gluten-free options and getting the allergy food. This time, it always took a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it was never not 25 minutes. So that's just a note. I don't know if it was because they had new supply in Europe or wherever they were, but for whatever reason, when you ordered at the deck or at cabanas, it did take a long time to get the allergy menus. I will say I did have a favorite meal in the main dining room. Vishal, one night, we didn't care for what our options were. And he said, I'll put something together. I'll get you chicken. I'll get you noodles. You'll have chicken noodles. So we're like, we're going to get some chicken noodle soup. Sound great. Cut to the chef prepared this chicken stir fry with noodles that tasted like old school Chinese food, lo mein. It was delicious. And we tried to recreate it another night in another dining room, and it just wasn't ever there. So in Royal Palace,
where we seemed like we ate like 8 times.
I don't know if this is a thing. Christy, you guys would know better. Usually we've always been like, the restaurants went in rotations of 3. It was Royal Palace, Enchanted Garden, Animator's Palette, and then it cycled. This time we had a lot of 2 nights in Enchanted Garden. Then you'll have a night in Royal Palace. Then there was like 3 nights in Animator's Palette. It was just random, it seemed. We couldn't figure out any type of rotation in the rotational dining this time.
No one felt like they were rotating. And it always felt like we were in Royal Palace, which was nice because when we were sailing on the fjords, with the light, it was light all the time and we were constantly getting views. So instead of being an animator's palette, like we would be overlooking the fjords, which I appreciate. So that was great too. My favorite thing this cruise was in cabanas. They had like, what did they call it? They called it something and I was like, this is not right, guys. Don't call it that.
The Latin station?
The Latin station. And I was like, oh no. But it was like a build your own taco bowl. So it was like Donald's Cantina, but in cabanas. And you could do it yourself, which I also extra like. So like every time those 2 things occur when people were like texting me. One was when the grill had spicy chicken, because it's my favorite. And 2 was when the Latin station was out and I could make myself a big taco bowl.
How often do you think that was out?
It was out at least 2 times. It might have been out a third time, but there were a lot of days we didn't even go into cabanas because we forgot to check. I think I discovered the Latin station a little too late. I was at least day 7, maybe 8.
Joe, did they have the pagers at the quick service to page you when your food was ready to come back?
They did not. Yeah, they were really good about, sometimes we like to eat like in the adult section over by Cove, past the barriers. That's usually by those quick service stations. So they were really good about like asking where we wanted to be and finding me, even though I would check back also. So the pagers always are nice, but it seemed like the head server was really good about finding and fetching me with my food.
Perfect.
Well, we've talked about cabanas and deck food and main dining room. We've got one more venue to talk about, and that's specialty dining. Did we do any nights at Palo?
Woohoo! We did a brunch and we did a dinner.
And how were those?
The food is amazing. I mean, as usual, and we got it all. This time for me, it was nice because I had another gluten-free friend with us. So instead of having to eat everything myself, we were able to share some things. But yeah, the food at Palo remains incredible. The chef was on top of it this time for sure.
Although the manager. Okay, so at the brunch, one of the girls was looking at her raspberry and she said, I think there's a bug on this raspberry. And we all were like, get out of here. There's not a bug in your raspberry. And then we saw the bug crawl out of the raspberry. So we called the waiter over and we were like, we're really sorry. Like there's a bug in this raspberry. And he was like, oh my God. And he took it. And then he brought the chef out to like apologize to us. And I was like, no, what are you? And in the meantime, the manager of Palo crisscrossed us 3 times, never came over and apologized. Not one time. I couldn't believe it. I was like, an insect crawled out of food and crawled around on her plate. And they did not. I mean, the chef apologized and the waiter apologized, but the restaurant manager never apologized. I was a little mad.
Yeah, that's a choice.
Yeah, it's crazy. He made eye contact with me. I know he saw me. It wasn't my raspberry, but like, come on, sir.
Yeah. But otherwise, the food was good. What was the highlight that you had for lunch and dinner?
I love that grape and gorgonzola pizza for the brunch. And for dinner, I don't even remember what I had for dinner. Whatever it was really good. I don't remember what it was.
My dinner highlight was the gnocchi. I'd never ordered that before gluten-free, and it was incredible. We did the price fix and then just got a side of the gnocchi.
What?
Yep. This is like a hidden gem.
Well, and I received the gnocchi for Minote. So I wonder if it's the same. And really, you guys should have gone to Pre-Minote because it was so amazing.
We had it booked, Christy.
Yeah, we had it booked. We had it booked. We got on and then they were like, suddenly it was available for like night 11. It was a sea day. So I guess it wasn't night 11, but whatever. It doesn't matter. And suddenly, and this happened several times, I looked back in our app and suddenly it was on a Reykjavik day. And I was like, wait a second. I never would have booked this on a Reykjavik day. It's an overnight and we're going to not be on the ship until like 10 p.m. that night. Like, why would I book this for 6 p.m.? And we went to guest services and they said, oh yeah, like we switched it because there weren't enough people who booked it on that day. So we just moved it to this day. And we were like, no, we didn't get to go.
Did a lot of random switching. We had that issue. Like Andrea said, we usually book our Apollo dinner on Pirate Night. And we did that. And then all of a sudden, Pirate Night was a different night. So it was kind of a last minute switch and just showed up in the app differently.
Yep. We also pre-booked. We pre-booked the brunch and then like it disappeared for half of our stateroom. We had a huge problem with that. We had to go to guest services and go, why is not everybody booked? And they were like, oh, and they didn't know if they'd be able to get us all together, but then they fixed it.
Anything else kind of talking on the Dream before we dive into the ports here?
Our head waiter, Raphael, should be promoted to head waiter all the time. I told him I was going to say that. I was like, I'm going to tell the whole podcast community, Raphael, you should be a head waiter constantly. Because he was like a temporary head waiter. We were like, you are the best head waiter in the universe. So 3 cheers for Raphael. Please make him a head waiter all the time, Disney. He's the best.
All right. Well, Christy, I think it's time we dive into these ports and we have quite a bit to get in here. And what's pretty interesting about this is you guys have kind of gone through all the avenues of booking these, from private to third party to I think even some through DCL as well. So we're going to go talk day by day, each of these ports. Let us know what you did and how you booked it and what your thoughts were. But that takes us to our first day, which is Stavanger, Norway.
Yeah, actually, one of the ways we booked some of our third-party excursions were through listening to the DCL podcast. And some previous podcasters talked about some of their experiences in Norway and Iceland as well. So we definitely got tips from your past guests, which is great. So in Stavanger, we did a rib boat excursion that was recommended by somebody on the DCL podcast. And it was great. It was right there. Once you get off the Dream, they were right near the Dream. You could just hop on the rib boat. We had some time before we got on the rib boat, so we explored the city a little bit, which was great. There was enough time to pretty much walk through the town and get a feel of it, have a coffee, things like that. But then we got on our rib boat, which wound up being one of the most beautiful experiences we had. We took the boat through the fjord to some waterfalls, to some caves. However, it can never go exactly as smoothly as you want. We got on our rib boat, we started going, and about 3 minutes in, our driver shared that there was a part that wasn't working on the boat. So he's like, we're going to try. And we tried, and the boat stalled, and we had to pull over. And luckily, we were able to pull over. And somehow, another boat that was going on another tour after us pulled by and picked up our driver and brought him 15 minutes away to pick up the part that we needed. We had some great people on the boat, so we were all having a good time, even though we were stranded in the middle of the fjord. And luckily, he came back with the part. He fixed it, and we took off, and we had this beautiful, amazing experience. So we highly recommend a rib boat in Stavanger, despite any issues.
Yeah, Stig jumped off our boat, and he got onto another boat. He was like, I'm leaving. We're just wrapped up too. If you've ever seen the outfits for these, you have to put on this full suit so that you don't get cold and wet. It's a hoot.
Yeah, and then we don't know if he was making up time, but our boat, it's supposed to be a speedboat. It was speeding. He was having a grand old time getting us to where we needed to go, and we were having a good time enjoying it.
It looks like from your notes that you found some yummy local food to try as well. Can you just briefly touch upon that?
Yeah, sure. In terms of gluten-free food, Christy, I do the crazy searching that many of us do whenever we go anywhere new. So I definitely searched some people that I know travel and are gluten-free. I looked at them beforehand, and there's the Find Me gluten-free app that I always kind of put in where we're going to be ahead of time and see if there's anything in the area. So it was good to know ahead of time some of the places that if we got near, we'd hit. And then just walking through town, a lot of the places did have a specialty, gluten-free things labeled, as you're walking by. So it was nice to kind of see things in Europe were really just easy to access if you are gluten-free, in specific for me.
And how do you say it, that bread that you tried here?
Oh, goat bread.
There you go.
Yeah.
Goat.
And they goat bread, and it was good. It was great. It tasted a little bit like what I expect the Norway school bread to taste like in Epcot, even though I've never had it because it's not gluten-free. So it was creamy, it was coconutty, it was delicious, actually. Mm-hmm. So highly recommend goat bread in Stavanger.
Pretty accurate to the school bread.
Was there anything else that you ate there?
No.
Well, okay. Why don't we move on to day 2? We're in Olden, Norway. What did we have booked for this day?
So for this day, we booked an outside excursion through Olden Cruise. We booked the Bergstall Glacier. So you could book the Bergstall Glacier 2 ways. You can book it just a bus that takes you to the bottom, and then you got to walk to the top, but I don't even know where the glacier is. And then, or you could book it where it takes you, and then you can get on a troll car, and it's a lot cheaper if you book it yourself. But I am here to tell you 2 things. So a lot of times these Norway cruises will tell you, or more Alaska, maybe adventurous, a little more adventurous of a cruise will say, this hike is easy. And so I said, Joe, I want to hike it. I like being active. I like hiking, but I am a plus size person. I'm not embarrassed about it. It's the way I am. So I used to do a lot more hiking, but I just haven't been as active as I wanted to be. This excursion is within a set amount of time. So the bus you take, even though there's a ton of buses going there and back all day, you have a set amount of time. You have to be back on the bus that takes you. When they say this hike is easy, it's easy for a very active person. It is not easy if you are not normally very active in your everyday life. I was like, but I want to stop. I want to walk. I want to take pictures of the thing. I could have done this hike at my own pace. I could not do this hike in a prescribed amount of time because it just had a lot of stairs. I just would never have made it there and back. And the troll cars were already booked. So I hiked to the waterfall. I took tons of pictures of the nice waterfall, and then I turned around and I went back. 2 other people that we went with didn't even bother. And Joe was like, I got this. And like, he went with the other people, the other room full of people, and they saw, and they had a blast. But just so everyone knows, like when people call the Pulpit Rock hike easy, that's not easy. Like, that's easy if you can run dopey.
I was going to say, does anybody call the Pulpit Rock?
Yes.
Wow.
I have heard people call the Pulpit Rock an easy hike. And like Lake would probably find it easy. Like you, Christy, you're also training for dopey. So like maybe it would be easy for you. But Joe had a beautiful time at that glacier. The pictures were gorgeous. I would have loved to see it. If I had to do it again, I would have either spent 6 months training for it so that I'd feel like I could do it in a prescribed amount of time, or I would just book the troll car.
Yeah, but Andrea makes a good point, because a lot of other trip reports that we listen to or watch talked about the troll cars being easily accessible when you show up on the day of. Don't worry about it. They were all booked. Like, we thought people would, have the option, like, oh, I'll just hop on the troll car. They were all booked. So if you think that's an option for you, definitely book it ahead of time, because you don't want to show up and then not be able to access the beauty of what this, is, if you expect it to be able to get on a troll car to do it.
100%. And I think I would have paid the money for the peace of mind. Do you know what I mean? Like, I could have gotten there and been like, whatever, I can walk this, and then just skip the troll car, because you could always do that. Being there and it being sold, that they were like, it's not available till 4:15, and it was like 1:30, and we had to get on the same bus back.
Yeah, this is a pretty common issue we've heard from Norway excursions, where they are a little bit deceiving in what they label as the difficulty level, especially when you're dealing with a lot of elevation and time constraints, like you said. So just something to keep in note. An easy hike labeled on someone's excursion website is not always very easy.
Yeah. It's the elevation, right? Because like I can walk all day long, but the minute it starts like tilting up at a 45-degree angle, like I'm not going to go fast. Like I can do it, but I'll be huffing and puffing the whole way behind everybody. So it's okay. I'm not sad. It just makes me determined to, continue like getting back to the level of fitness I was at when I did those things a lot, and also come back again.
Anything else from Olden?
Nope.
Well, why don't we bring this into our third port stop, Ålesund, Norway?
In Ålesund, a lot of things were canceled because of high wind. So we were lucky because we had booked an adult-only bus journey through the town. Our friends booked a boat, and they said it was really bad. They said everybody was throwing up. They were like, it was a nightmare. And I was like, thank God I wasn't on that ship.
And Disney sent them a message the night before saying, hey, we're still doing this excursion, but just so you know, there's going to be high winds. You have the choice to cancel now. And a lot of people wish they had.
Yeah, it was crazy. But this one was nice. It took us all over the city. Joe, did we stop at home? We must have stopped to get out and take pictures. Oh, we first went to a little Norway town.
We went through, Norway's famous for having these like big tunnels or long tunnels. So we took a trip through a tunnel, went to this little island. So, I feel like many of the Disney European excursions always have like a beach and a church. So there was a church and there was a walk down to the pier. And then we ended up at this outdoor museum that had a lot of old houses and buildings that you could explore, you could walk through. So we walked through that little village, lots of pictures.
Our driver was not a driver, but we had a guide through Disney who explained a lot of it. It was really cool. And then they took us to Ålesund, then they dropped us off. and Joe decided to climb another mountain.
Well, that was great. The excursion we did was only a couple of hours. So we did have time afterwards. In Ålesund, there is another mountain. It's called the Mount Axla viewpoint. And you kind of hike up this mountain. It's stairs. It's man-made stairs. So it's 400 and some odd stairs, I want to say.
So it's a big no from me. I'm not climbing up 400 something.
But once you get to the top, it's kind of gorgeous. You see the port, you see the Disney Dream in the background. It's really stunning views. It is steep. So getting up is one thing, but coming down, even for myself, I was like, oh, there's the edge. So that was a little bit much, but still, Disney does excursions to that, and they cost a lot of money or some amount of money, when literally to get from the ship to the bottom of that mountain hike thing, maybe 20 minutes if you're going slow. Like it took me it was very quick to get there. So I would say that's definitely something you could do on your own, that you don't have to book through Disney, or, you could just walk there and do the walk up to the top and get the views. And actually, Steve was on the Dream right after us, and it looks like they posted a lot of pictures of that view as well, so they got a chance to experience it.
Nothing wrong with that. Sounds like just an awesome day in Ålesund. But then that brings us to our first day, or should I say first and only 2 days in Iceland. We are in Reykjavik, and this is an overnight, as I just alluded to. What did we have planned for our 2 days in Iceland?
This was another third party that we booked as a recommendation from DCL. Somebody had done nice travel. They were incredible. They
Highly recommend.
Right? We used them actually on both days in Iceland on 2 different excursions. We had 2 different drivers/tour guides just because of what we were doing, and they were wonderful. So for, again, 7 of us, it was worth it to kind of book on our own as opposed to going through Disney or doing something else.
And I know a lot of people in the Facebook groups tend to hook up with like-minded families or groups. It's like, oh, we have a group of 3, and these are our kids, how old they are and what they like. And so that's definitely also an option for people.
Yeah, we did some of the big hits of Iceland. We did the Golden Circle, which takes you through waterfalls, a crater, a geyser, just beautiful landscape. I kept saying, and this may sound odd, we had the chance to visit Hawaii a couple of years ago, and Kauai is one of the most beautiful green places I've ever been to. And actually, Iceland reminded me of Kauai. Even though we were wearing jackets and it was a lot colder, the green landscapes and the mountains and the waterfalls were very similar. But I think our highlight was on our second day when we went down to the South Shore, the South Coast. We did the black sand beaches, more waterfalls. But this day is when we got to do our glacier hike, which didn't have many altitude issues. So Andrea did experience this entire thing with us.
I sure did.
Loved it.
I loved it. Yeah. So I was terrified. I was like, when they told us, here's this, harness, you got to put it on in case you fall into a fissure. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in over my head again. But I wasn't. And they, I'm happy. Took my ice pick, and I had my, what do they call them? You put on your shoes, Joe?
Claws? I don't know.
My brother was like, oh, you were wearing the ice hike things. They were claws that you had to put on your hiking boots. So we hiked to the glacier, and then we climbed up the glacier. And again, we didn't have time constraints. And our guide said, we can go as slow, I will not leave you. You tell me how slow when you need a break, take a break. And yeah, so we had a great time, and I climbed the glacier and I felt really great. And then we went to see puffins, and we were so close to them. We were 5 feet away from the puffins. I wanted to squeeze them. Oh, they were so cute. It was adorable.
You guys had the most amazing pictures.
Yeah, it was great. You know what was nice about this? What was nice, especially because it was private, that puffin stop was not on our itinerary. And one of the other girls was complaining because she was supposed to see puffins in Ålesund on that boat that they got sick on. And she was like, I'm not going to get to see puffins. I'm so upset. And I said, I wanted to see puffins in Ísafjörður because that's what we were signed up to do in Ísafjörður. And he goes, oh, you guys want to see puffins? And we were like, yes. And he goes, I got you. And he took us 5 minutes out of our way to this beautiful stop with just puffins everywhere. I have to say, I liked the Golden Circle, but the South Coast was great. It was much better for me.
Yeah.
And there's a Yoda rock that apparently you can hike to. It was just a little out of the way, like further than we were. And I was like, I'm so sad I didn't get to see the Yoda rock.
Did you go to the Michelin star restaurant that was on your chart?
So that was the one thing, because we were like seeing all this stuff outside of Reykjavik, we didn't get in the city. And by the time we were done, with our full day touring, it was like 9:30, and we could have gone into Reykjavik and checked that out, but we opted to run back on the ship. And as we were entering the ship again, they give you hot chocolate as opposed to orange and cucumber water in the Caribbean as you're coming back on the ship. And they were sending us, I want to say it was like 9:15, 9:30. And they were like, well, if you had late dining, you could head right down to your dining rotation. And we had already told our dining team that we wouldn't be eating there. And so we were like, okay. And we were going to go just to put in our gluten-free our pre-orders for the next day. So we headed down that way, and they wound up serving us, and they were wonderful. They're like, well, you're here, we'll get you whatever you want. And we wound up eating, but
I have to say, it was very clear that they had not told the dining team, the dining room, and
was what they were telling you as you were coming back on the ship.
They were like, run to your dining, go to your dining. And then like everybody's showing up to dinner, and people in the dining room were like, what's going on? And we felt bad for them. We really did. They were lovely and so nice that they served us, but I really did feel a little awkward. I was like, oh no, we're getting here so late. These poor people want to go to sleep.
So that is the end of your port days. You lost a port at the end, and
but we gained one. We have one more to talk about.
Yeah, they put in Liverpool.
Okay.
What did we do in Liverpool?
I missed that.
I got
was ill.
do anything, but that's okay. I will say, Andrea will tell you about the good experience. I stayed on the ship, and it was so hot. People were sunbathing in bikinis on the top deck. This was the one time I got to experience Satellite Falls, and it was gorgeous. So even though I was sick, I was on the ship, and I was able to just lay around and not worry and actually enjoy being on the ship. But Andrea did a nice little.
Yes. Yeah. We went to Wales. We booked a busy bus. We found about it on the Facebook group, I think, right, Joe? Mm-hmm. Everybody was talking about busy bus. So they kept adding buses. What was wild was we got off the bus and got onto the bus. They were not checking IDs. They were not checking bookings. They were just like, get on the bus. And we were like, is this the right bus? So anyone could have gotten on this bus. I don't even know why we paid to book it, because you could have just walked on it. But no, I would never do that. But the bus was amazing. We went to a whole 5 or 6 stops in Wales, viewpoints. They took us to a tiny walled town where we got to see Conwy Castle. And you could either go in or you could just walk around this incredible walled town. They took us to Snowdonia National Park. Beautiful views. We had a little picnic that we had bought at the town by Conwy Castle. It was gorgeous. It was just really beautiful. And they kept little stops all throughout the day, half hour here, 45 minutes there, an hour there. I wish they'd given us a little bit more time around the castle, especially because the first stop they took us was where there was a Victorian pier. That was kind of a waste. I was like, I don't like this. But other than that, it was a beautiful day. We had a really good time in Wales, and it was just me and one other friend. So we had a lovely time.
Well, sadly, you have a sea day after that, and then you are back in Southampton. What was our process like for getting home?
The disembarkation was really smooth. We had late breakfast, obviously, because we had late dining. So we had breakfast at 8:15, what have you. And then we were getting off the ship at maybe 9:15. And we walked off. We got our luggage. We zipped through. We didn't even do any type of customs or anything.
Oh, it was really strange.
Yeah, it was strange. We're just walking out of the building. Okay.
Yeah, nobody looked at our passport. It was crazy.
Yeah, and we did Disney transfers. So there was a cast member right there and said, where are you going? She gave us a sticker for whatever airport we were going to. Some in our party were going to Heathrow and some were going to Gatwick. So we had different buses we had to aim towards. Oh, actually, there were different buses for different terminals too. Mm-hmm. So Andrea both going to Heathrow, and we thought we'd have time to hang out on the transfer, but we didn't. They separated us on the shuttles, which in the end makes total sense. But that's just good to know, because she was terminal something, I was terminal something else.
Because I was flying to Munich to fly home the next day. because I found a good points. You know, sometimes when you're crazy and you're like, I did points flight. Ooh, I'm going to fly Delta One. And then you're just like, actually, I just want to go home. But instead you fly to Munich and get stuck there for a night.
Yeah. But, the shuttles were great. They were easy. They were quick. Some of us actually that's a good tip, I guess. If you have an early flight, you should just be aware that you don't know how long it's going to take to get on your shuttle and get to your airport, because my friend and I that were going on our bus, we were the last two on the bus. So we took off right away. Whereas another friend was like the first one on her bus. So she was waiting for a little while.
A long time. Yeah, I waited about a half hour, but she waited at least an hour to go to Gatwick. She was trying to get on standby for the earlier flight and she just didn't make it, unfortunately. So I would say if you have an early flight that you need to get to, like express walk off that and maybe book private transfers, because they wait for those buses to be full.
That makes sense. So we alluded to the fact that the timeline for Norwegian cruises is like quickly coming to an end. Unless Norway changes the rules, they are closing the fjords to cruise ships that have emissions, basically, which is like every cruise ship after 2025. So 2025 is the last season. There are still tons of cruises going out next year. So if people are interested, I know Disney goes, but I believe their cruise is later into August, or at least into August. So as of this one, you guys actually cruised in July, but that was an earlier cruise for what Disney typically does. There are tons of other cruise lines going there. Celebrity, which is the one I'm going on next summer. And then there's Royal and NCL are the most popular. Oh, Princess has cruises there as well. And obviously the other cruise lines would too. So if it's something that somebody's looking into, you definitely want to get that on the books, because we don't really know what's going to happen. I mean, you can go on the National Geographic, I believe, cruises, but those are in such a different price point that a lot of people aren't going to be able to do that financially. But I wanted to talk really quick about packing tips, because it was a very long cruise and you had maybe a lot of different weather. I know one of your tours had hiking boots, but do you recommend hiking boots versus hiking shoes and just waterproof shoes?
So in terms of packing, just to start with the shoes, our glacier hike is the only thing that required us to have specific shoes, and they required hiking shoes. They actually said hiking boots with ankle support, but they allowed, full hiking shoes. Like I have boots and I have shoes, and my shoes were fine, but that's something you have to think about because they are heavy if you're packing them. Everything else we did in Norway, the hiking shoes were appreciated, but some of the people in our party had sneakers and they were fine. It's just a matter of, a lot of it is moist or wet, or you're walking past waterfalls that are misting onto the paths that you're walking on. So that would be something that I'd just consider how sturdy your shoes are.
Yeah. When we were in the south in Iceland, we walked actually through waterfalls, and there were all these people like trying to climb onto the rocks. And eventually at one point I was like, oh, whatever. And I just tromped through the waterfall because I had hiking boots that were waterproof, and it made my job like, I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter if I slip and fall, there won't be no water in these shoes. And it was great. And I'm a little bit of a klutz, so I prefer hiking in boots. I don't like hiking in hiking shoes. If you're going to the Bristol Glacier, you can wear whatever. You can wear sneakers. But again, like, I'm a klutz. And there was some real steep inclines. So when I was walking up towards the glacier, it was fine. But when I was coming down, I was really grateful for the hiking boot with ankle support. What did you think about that, Joe, that one particular port?
Yeah, again, I wore my hiking shoes for that, and it's beneficial. There was a woman on that wearing flip-flops, sequin flip-flops. And, don't do that. Definitely some nice, sturdy, good sneakers, not an old pair of sneakers that might not have treading anymore. But if you can, a nice pair of waterproof hiking shoes are good. And also waterproof socks. I definitely would recommend that too, because I think it would be helpful.
I have waterproof shoes I do not mess with. I just make sure my socks are wicking and I'm good.
Yeah. But in terms of everything else we packed, you start out the morning and it's chilly, but then by midday, and especially if you're hiking altitudes, like it would get really sunny and warm. So you definitely want to pack layers as much as people recommend. Layers, layers, layers. There were times when we were walking through town with like jeans and a t-shirt, and that was fine. But you want to start out with long sleeve t-shirts, a rain jacket. I would say it didn't get freezing in Norway.
No, we were never really cold. The coldest it got was Iceland.
Yeah.
So in Norway, what did it get to? The lowest, it was like 63, 65. And it got up to like 75. The days that it was sunny, it was like, so we never really had a day of full on rain, which I was really, really grateful for. And then the other thing I would say is that the busiest place on the Dream was the laundry rooms. So there were a couple of times where they gave us in our room a laundry special where they would launder 30 pieces of your laundry for $25. 30 pieces of laundry is a lot. And like if I had a family, because I counted my laundry at one point, I was like, I'm just going to do this. $25 seems, once you're on a 12-night cruise, like you get to day 8 and you're like, what is money? What is time? I don't know what's going on anymore. So I counted my clothes because I was like, there's only 12 pieces here. I'm not going to spend $25 for 12 pieces. And everybody else had done laundry or was like, I'm not going to do it. So I was like, okay. So we didn't do it. But if you had a family for $25, 30 pieces for $25 is reasonable, I thought, especially to avoid the crush of that laundry room. That laundry room was busy every day, all times of day.
Well, sounds like just a fantastic trip and a great cruise. But moving forward, what's next for you?
Well, I think I need to price out a cruise over Christmas or New Year's because we have a full-on 2-week break around Christmas, and that never happens for us in New York. So I'm going to check that out. But what I definitely have booked is the Treasure over my spring break in April. Mm-hmm. I don't know what Joe's doing though, because he's not coming.
But we do have placeholders set, and we're talking about Alaska and maybe getting back to the Eastern Med again. So those aren't set, but they're in the conversation.
Oh, yeah, right. There's an Eastern Med that's long that's going to like Greece and Turkey next summer. That's the one we've got our eyes on.
Well, both are fantastic options for you. But Andee, Joe, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience sailing to Norway and Iceland. But that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show. Once again, we want to thank Andee and Joe for coming on and sharing their adventures on the Disney Dream through Norway and Iceland. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We would also like to thank our Patreons who help make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailings and safe travels. And we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.